Hello, hello. I am live. It's been a while. It's been a while, but I am so glad to be here. I see some comments and I see some people who are here live with me. I am so glad that you're here. If you can hear me, type yes or where you are joining from. So I can make sure that everything's okay technically. All right. Okay. I am really excited to be sharing this conversation with you. I'm going to be talking about why I've been able to sustain myself here in France for just about 8 years. January will be 8 years. And I came up with some really interesting points, and I know this is going to help a lot of you. All right. I see that Miss Sierra 2222 can hear. So that is wonderful. That is wonderful. I see Kristen Hill is here. Hey, Kristen. So glad that you could make it. And Ryder Skater, another regular. And yes, ça va. Angela Sims Evans, congratulations on your recent move to Bordeaux. How is it going? I'm so excited for you. I can't wait to hear all about it. All right. Well, today, as I said, I am going to be talking about eight things that have allowed me to sustain myself here for 8 years and why, some people don't make it. I think the thing that makes this live stream really interesting to me today is because just 2 days ago I was in a store in Surrey. I was looking for a knickknack to put in a stocking or kind of like a stocking stuffer. And I'd never been in this store. I'd passed this store a lot of times, but I'd never been in it. And it has lots of knickknacks, things to hang on the wall, trinkets, all of that. And I thought, yeah, maybe they'll have what I'm looking for. So I went in and I said, bonjour. And the guy behind the counter said, bonjour. And I started just walking around and looking. And I was in the store for maybe 5 minutes. And then he said, if I asked if I needed any help. And I said, well, I was looking for this certain thing. And I don't want to say more about that because the person might be watching. And he's like, well, we don't have exactly that. We've got this one and we've got that one. And I said, yeah, no, it's not exactly what I'm looking for. And then he said to me, he said, you're not from around here, are you? Your accent, it's different. And I said, no, I said, I'm an American. And then I added, oh, but I've been living in Surrey for 7 years. And he's like, oh, you're no longer American then. You're a Seritan. And that to me was an affirmation, confirmation. That felt validation. That felt really good that all the work that I've put in, to get to this place where France feels like home, where I feel integrated into my community has been so worth it. And the idea, behind sharing these eight things that have gotten me to this point, I think will help you as you make your move abroad or as you start your new life abroad. Um, so I'm going to jump in here. Let's see who else has. Anybody else joined us? Let me know if you've recently joined, let me know where you're joining from. All right, let's see. We've got Michelle S. 280 from Austin, Texas. Hello. Howdy. um, and Kim Cooper, 1833. Ah, thank you. Thank you. She says she loves and appreciates me. Ah, that feels really good. Thank you. Yeah, um, so how did I get to this place where, I'm much, much more comfortable with uncertainty, how I'm able to navigate, the cultural differences and the challenges of, being in a country that is a foreign country still. And really managing to settle in and belong here. comes down to these 8 things that I'm going to unpack right now. Um, and, before I jump in, I do want to mention that, the title of this is, moving to France, why some people leave and I stayed. It's if you make a move abroad and you find it's not right for you, or you find it's not the right country and you move to another country, that is not failure. That is success because you did the thing that you wanted to do. You learned a lot about yourself. You definitely grew personally. And I've worked with a few people who have made the move and decided that they were going to go back either temporarily to kind of regroup and then return, or permanently because, well, you know what? Family was being close to family was more important than they realized, or whatever their situation was. And that's not failure. They all say having made the move was a good thing. They were really glad that they did it. So I just want to put that out there that, if you don't stay, longer than a year or two, there's nothing wrong with it. It does not signify failure. All right. So I think thing number one that has allowed me to stay for as long as I have is that when I moved abroad, I had a grounded why. And this is something I work with my clients on all the time. What's your why? Why is it that you want to turn your life upside down so completely um, to move to this foreign country? And for me, I didn't ask myself that question, but I had two goals and an underlying feeling that was there. And the two goals, the one goal was to become fluent in French, and the second one was to write my second book about my first year in France. And so that helped me to say, oh, I'm doing this because these are the things that I want to accomplish. But also, after having visited France 3 times before my move, every time I was in France, I felt really good. And that feeling was something I wanted to experience long term. And so that was an underlying why that really was grounded. Uh, I think sometimes people have romanticized the country they want to move to. Maybe they've had a love affair with their country for a long time and they're thinking about, living there the way that they've either visited or seen in movies and don't necessarily realize that, well, at the end of the day, after the honeymoon period wears off, it's just life, and it's life in a foreign country where things are different. Things don't flow the way that you are used to. You don't know how some of those things are going to flow. And it is just harder. It is just harder. And so I didn't have that romanticized view to get in the way. And so I'm really grateful for that. But having that grounded why and not, having that romanticized um, uh, issue really helped me to settle in nicely here. The other thing around this having a grounded why is I didn't have the conversation in my head that, we sometimes have when we are in a place where we're not happy, place, physically, emotionally. Uh, and that is, I didn't have the conversation, once I'm living in France, then I'll be happy. That was not a conversation that was going on. It was, yeah, I feel better in France and I want to, speak French fluently and write my book. But it wasn't like, oh, I'm so miserable where I am. And I think that is important too, because at the end of the day, when there's the saying, wherever you go, there you are, that, unhappiness can follow you. Okay. So thing number one, my grounded why. What is your why? Are you planning a move abroad? If so, why? What is it that you hope to experience, have, be, do, or become as you're living in your new country? Drop that in the chat. All right. So thing number two is having enough of a financial runway. A couple of days ago, I was reading a post on Facebook. There was a couple who moved to France and they stayed for a year and then they returned back, I believe, to the United States. And it wasn't because they wanted to, but they just didn't have enough savings to carry them longer term. They both had, I think, remote work that they were doing, but it wasn't consistent. And they found themselves living off of their savings and then running through that pretty quickly. And so they were disappointed, but had to return back to the States. For me, when I moved, I had at least 3 years. I could show the French government that I could support myself on my savings for 3 years. Now, having that was one thing. The problem and the challenge for me in using that, in saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to move to France and I'm going to live off of my savings, I'm going to take this sabbatical, take this career break, and kind of figure out what my next steps are, was that savings was earmarked for emergencies. My dad always told me to, create an emergency fund. And over the years, I just kept squirreling money away for emergencies, and I'd have small emergencies, never depleted, the fund, and it just grew and grew and grew and grew. But it's still earmarked for emergencies. And the thing that allowed me to say, okay, I'm going to make this move abroad and I'm going to be living off of my emergency fund, was that I have a coach friend. We went through coach training together, and we had a conversation, a year and a half before I made my move. And I said, yeah, I could do it. Financially, I could do it. It just feels really wrong to tap into my savings, my emergency fund. And she said something that shifted my perspective like 180 degrees. She said, what if moving abroad is the emergency? And now I look at where I am today and what I'm doing and how happy I am. And I thought, I'm so glad that she said that. And I'm so glad that helped me to say, yeah, you can use this, because if staying is not going to, if staying, in staying, I wouldn't necessarily know, what my life would look and feel like, but I knew that I wanted something different. And so I thank her. I thank her for that. All right. Let's see what we got going in the comments. All right. Yeah, lots of California folks tonight. Welcome, welcome. Michelle S. says, me too. My why is I finally want to master the French language. Also, since I was very young, like preteen, I developed a love for all things French. Yeah, yeah, wonderful. Hi, Benjamin. Welcome, welcome. So good that you could join. Um, Thank you. Lovely breakdown, very intentional and considered as always. You're grounded why? Not an easy question. Not at all. Not at all. But an important one. An important one. Right. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, another why. We're off to the races. The culture, master la langue française, love to travel and want the ability to travel to other countries easily. Wonderful, wonderful, clear. All right. So we've got thing one, we got thing two. Thing number three, learning French beyond survival French. All right. This has been a game changer, because when you're living in a place, if you don't feel like you're able to communicate in the way that you need to when it comes to, going to the bank, or dealing with the insurance agent, or, like for me this year, I got bit by a dog and I went to the gendarmerie and I filed a complaint. Being able to tell the story as thoroughly and completely and as clearly as possible is stressful. And that stress after time, I think, really can weigh on you. So, getting that learning the language beyond just the survival will take you far. And I think that has has been true for me. In addition, it really has allowed me to make inroads with the community here. Right, I have English speaking friends, friends who don't speak much French, and that's okay because I can speak English. But I have friends who can speak um, nothing but French, and we can communicate. And in fact, just today, this is not a happy story for me, but just today I ran into a neighbor, somebody that I would pass on my morning walk all the time. And I'd stop and I'd speak to him or his wife as I was going by, and we'd sometimes have 20-minute conversations. Well, I saw him maybe a week ago, and he didn't look well. He was with his wife, and they were getting ready to go somewhere, so I didn't stop and talk long. But today I saw him on his own. And I stopped and I asked, is everything okay? I said, tout va bien? And he didn't say anything. He paused, he hesitated, and he looked like he was going to tear up. And then I knew he was, not well, right? And so he stood there for a minute or 2 minutes, not saying anything, trying not to cry. And then he shared with me that, yes, he, was sick and that he was struggling with that. And he was, and so I stood there and I spoke to him, I let him know that, I was there for him if he needed anything, and that it's, perfectly normal to feel the way he was feeling. And we spoke for, 5 minutes in French. And then he says, well, I'm gonna go back home now. And I said, okay, did you want me to walk you there? And he's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. And I said, okay. And that could not have happened if I could not communicate the way that I can in French. And I think that the connections that you make are really important. And that has helped me to, feel like a part of this community. So learning French beyond survival French is huge. All right. So I think that if you have a goal like learning the language, or if you have a goal of making a move abroad, sometimes you can feel sometimes you can feel like, yeah, I have this goal, but I don't really know, where to start, how to make this really happen. And I wanted to share something that I am offering in January. It's a Women Rising Roundtable. It's really a workshop because we're going to, roll up our sleeves and get to work. But it's all about reinventing yourself, creating your reinvention plan. And what that means is that, you'll come to the table with a goal or two that you want to flesh out and create a plan for. And that goal will be a goal that will support the core values you want to honor more fully in 2026. And then from there, we break that goal down into milestones, those big chunks that once you complete, you can celebrate. And we break those milestones down into smaller tasks that are bite sized, that are doable, that are actionable, so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And then we create an accountability plan so that you actually follow the steps. And it's going to happen on January 10th. It's going to be a 3-hour workshop. And it's incredible. I've run this once this year in May, and the people who walked away from that workshop have done amazing things. One person came, and their goal was to move to France, and she is now in France. So it's a really powerful workshop. And if you are interested in attending that, there are 7 spaces available, 7 spaces left. And you can go to thecouragecatalyst.com/roundtable. Check it out and sign up. And I look forward to seeing you there if that sounds like something that could help you. All right. So, thing number 4 that helped me to stay in France for 8 years has been that I found the right place. Now, when I first found Perpignan, which was the first city that I lived in, it was this aha moment that, oh my gosh, I have just found my new home. It felt perfect. And so that is where I lived in my first year. But, 10 months in, I'm starting to think about renewing my visa, and I'm going to need an address. And while the apartment I was living in was fabulous, the neighborhood wasn't. And after 10 months of, scouring the city, exploring the city, I really couldn't find the neighborhood that felt right to me, that felt like home to me. And so I felt like I needed to go out further. One of the things that I might not have done as my former self, I might not have changed it up. I might have said, "Oh no, but Patricia, you picked Perpignan. If you move, you're going to be wishy-washy." That was something that I never liked. I always considered myself a decisive person. I made a decision and I stuck with that decision. But over the years, I've learned that um, things change, people change, situations change, and sometimes pivoting is okay. And so I gave myself that permission. I found Saray, and when I found Saray, it was okay. It was like I didn't have that aha, but I thought it could work. And now I've been here for 7 years. But finding that place that felt like home, finding that place where I felt good, that I felt was right for me, has made a big difference. I think if you're in a place and you feel like you're settling, or the vibe isn't right, that can really be off-putting, and that can wear on you over time as well. All right. So finding the right place, finding a place that feels like home. If you are planning a move abroad, or have moved abroad, how did you decide on the place that felt right to you? Let us know in the chat. All right. Let's see. Let me check the chat for what is going on. Um, yes, Miss Sierra, 2,222. Wonderful story. Those connections make you feel that sense of belonging. I need that connection. Yeah, it was powerful. Like, it was sad, right? But I felt like, okay, I was meant to be here to support and comfort him, right? That's what he needed. And the fact that he felt comfortable enough to not just say, "Oh, everything's okay," and just brush by me and continue, that he felt that he wanted to share what was going on with him. That, to me, was really empowering. Really, it really felt good. All right, and we've got Rider Skater. One of the toughest hurdles of moving abroad is when family members are against the idea. Many family members just don't understand why someone would want to leave the USA. They think no place is better. Yeah, that's true. And I think that that's another reason why having a grounded why, that you don't have to necessarily share with those people who don't necessarily understand, but that in your heart is why you're doing this thing, can give you that energy, that power, that fortitude to move forward consistently to reach that goal. Great comment. Thank you. Kristen Hill, was the roundtable last May? Indeed, it was. It was my goal to move to France. We now have our visa and move in less than 2 weeks. I couldn't recommend it more. Patricia is an amazing facilitator. Thank you, Kristen, for saying that. And I can't believe that you're on this live stream with 2 weeks to go to make your move. But I truly appreciate it, and I'm glad that you're here, and thank you for the testimonial. All right, let's see what else. All right, let's see. We've got Amanda. Cole Morgan, Korea felt right for me. Good, good. Congratulations. Um, here's a thought. We're off to the races. Be careful who you share your dreams with. They can steal your shine. Absolutely. I mean, this is something that I like to share my dreams with people, but it's important to share the dreams with the right people. And the reason that I like to share my dreams with people is kind of helps me to stay accountable. If I put it out there and I say it to somebody, then I'm more likely to follow through. But it's so true that somebody can say, "Oh, why do you want to do that thing?" And that can make you question whether or not it's right for you. So definitely a good suggestion. All right. So thing number five, I'm going to move on to thing number five. And if you're enjoying this, be sure to give this a thumbs up because that is going to help more people see this content. All right, thing number five, openness to people and connection. Now, I have introvert tendencies. I come from a family that is loving, but not overly so, and especially not to people who aren't in the family, within the family. I don't ever remember my parents having house guests. And I remember my mom saying after 3 days, house guests and fish stink. And so for me, it felt like, just keeping it close with family was the thing to do. And one of the things that I found really interesting. One of the things I really enjoyed about living here in my first year, the beginning of my second year here in France was that sense that nobody knew who I was here. That sense of anonymity. I could walk down the street and not that I was doing anything that wasn't right or was illegal or anything. It was just that I just had that freedom of anonymity and that felt incredible. It was not something I had expected, but I really enjoyed. And then when I moved to Surrey after the first couple of months, people started to know me. It's a small town, right? And I realized that that was not going to be my reality. And at first, I was like, well, I don't know if how much I like that. And I felt really closed off. I really wasn't open to, building the community. But I stopped and I asked myself, Patricia, you're here all alone, and community and belonging is really important, whether or not you know it, right? Whether or not your introvert tendencies was telling you, oh, no, you don't need anybody. It's really important. And so I opened up to that. I started, doing things, going out, uh, building community through activities, but also just being open to talking to my neighbors as I'm walking by and not feeling like, oh my gosh, this feels hard. It was hard in the beginning, but embracing that sense of community. And had I not, I could still be here, but I don't think I would be as settled, as grounded, as content as I am. So um, opening myself up to connection and not being afraid of it, I think is huge. All right. What kind of connection do you need? Do you need a lot? Do you need to know a lot of people, or do you need to, just a few people, but deeper, or maybe both? I think it's important to kind of know yourself so that as you plan to move abroad, you can kind of think that through and say, okay, this is what I'm going for. This is the kind of connection I am looking for. Thing number six, emotional resilience. Emotional resilience. Um, this is something that I think people underestimate. in making a move abroad, because making a move abroad is about the logistics. It's about the financial planning, and it's about building the habits and thought patterns and beliefs of the kind of person who moves abroad confidently and sustainably, so that you can, first of all, take those steps that you need to make the move abroad happen. But second of all, once you get to that place, that you're able to move through the rough parts, the deal with the cultural differences, and and do it in a way that doesn't break you, that allows you to say, okay, yeah, this feels uncomfortable, and I have these skills that will help me through. I have a belief that I am strong enough to make it through, and that for me has made a huge amount of difference. When I first got here, I was challenged from day two. I woke up in my apartment to this horrible smell of store gas, and I'd signed a year-long lease. And I was in this foreign country, and I was like, there's no way that I can live here for an entire year. What am I going to do? The fact that I did not feel paralyzed to do anything, that I felt like, okay, I'm going to move forward. I'm going to take steps. I'm going to look for another apartment. I'm going to figure out a way to break the lease legally. That helped me to get out of that horrible situation. But I had a belief that I would be able to figure it out, that I had the wherewithal to move through the steps that it would take, without, just saying, oh my gosh, this is all I can do. I'm going to have to live with it. Um, the challenge of One of the biggest challenges I've faced here in France was after I started my business. I got a profession liberale visa, and that allowed me to start my business. It was good for 1 year. And after a year, I would have to renew. And one of the requirements was that after a year, I would need to show that I had made the French minimum wage, or the SMIC, as they call it, SMIC. And um, 10 months in, I was looking like I was not going to meet that SMIC. And I started to panic, and I, was hustling, trying to get clients so that I could bridge the gap. And, a few weeks before, it was looking like it wasn't going to happen. And this is a really stressful time, because I'd been in France for 4 years, I guess, at this point, because just about 4 years, because I'd come on the visitor visa initially. But what did I do? I I leaned on some skills that I'd learned, mindfulness skills, meditation and prayer, and visualization. I visualized myself going into that appointment with all of my documents well organized, being confident and handing over those papers. And I visualized myself walking out, standing tall, and I did. That helped me to make it through. And a few weeks later, I got my response, and it was a positive one. But I was sweating for a while. And I share that just because, without having had that emotional resilience, um, that situation would have been a lot more stressful. It was very stressful, but I think it would have been a lot more stressful. I would have, um, it would have been much, much worse. So emotional resilience matters. And so I work with people one-on-one or in my group coaching program before they move abroad, so that they can recognize where they might need to build up some skills, emotional resilience, or being okay with uncertainty, or whatever the things they find challenging, so that when they get here, when they get to their foreign country, that they've built that up enough so that it feels easier. It's not going to be easy, but it feels easier. And I also work with people who have made the move, and they recognize, oh, okay, I'm here now, and this is a little bit different from what I expected. I would like some support in figuring out, who I want to be here, or how I move through these harder parts with more grace. So I offer, one-on-one coaching. I offer group coaching, and you can go to my website, thecouragecatalyst.com, and check out all that I offer. All right. So emotional resilience. Let me check in the comments to see what we got going on. If you've got questions for me, feel free to drop them in the chat as well. All right. Some folks let fear of change limit them. Being a bit fearless is a gift you give yourself. Having supportive friends is important. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And one of the things I think that has helped me when I've been doing things that have been scary is that I go back to my grounded why. Why am I doing this in the first place? Yes, this feels hard. Yes, this feels scary, but you know, I'm doing this in support of something bigger than just me. It's this the core values that I'm supporting. It's the mission that I have to help people. And when I put it in those terms, yeah, the fear is still there, but it helps me move through it more easily. All right, Cynthia. Cynthia 9040. I prefer quality connections to having a large group. Yeah, I'm there with you. I feel like deeper connection is what I prefer. But having knowing more people. I mean, having a network is good too, because you never know when who knows who, or who can help you in some other way. But definitely, I'm of the more quality, deeper connection too. Thanks for sharing. All right. All right. So Angela, oh, I thought this was Angela Sims saying that they really like Bordeaux. We're off to the races, really likes Bordeaux and the wineries. All right. Hi, Tina. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to finish off, and then I'm going to get to questions. All right. So thing number 7 is self compassion and humor, being able to laugh at myself. Um, you move to a foreign country, you may make some faux pas. You may say things in the foreign language incorrectly that are are laughable, that are funny. Um, but if you struggle to laugh at yourself and move through that's hard. And I have managed to. I remember when I first got to Perpignan, I decided I was going to put myself out there. I knew I needed to. And I went to a laughter yoga class. And the laughter yoga class was all about, I don't know if you know laughter yoga, but it is where the facilitator tells you to act like a child, act as if you're jumping through a puddle of water. And then afterwards, you just burst out into laughter, right? You just let go and laugh. And the yoga in laughter yoga is the breathing that you get from laughing. So I went to this laughter yoga class first time. I go in there, 2 or 3 people standing around, and I go up to them, and my American self says, "Oh, hi, my name's Patricia," right? introvert, but I'm doing the thing that would be normal in the United States. And nobody said anything to me. They looked at me, okay, that's nice. I didn't know that, introducing myself with my name was not the thing that to do. And it felt embarrassing, but I stayed. I didn't leave. And worked through that. And so being able to have that, being able to move through things like that, and that give yourself self compassion when you do things that feel stupid or make you feel embarrassed is important, because um, then you can continue to do the things that are going to get you to the life that you want. Continue to go and go out to events and do things, but that also that you're not taking that stress home and raking yourself over the coals. When I was in high school, um, my high school sweetheart told me that I'd love to rake myself over the coals. If I made a mistake or I said something that wasn't right, I would come home and I would talk about it up one way and down the other. He's like, "Ah, you really like to rake yourself over the coals." But I have changed so much now that I'm like, okay, yeah, that was stupid. Okay, next. And this helps, being able to give yourself the self-compassion, and laugh at yourself, helps when you're learning a foreign language, because if you aren't able to do that, then you're going to be scared to speak. And speaking the language is the way that you're going to speak it fluently, right? If you don't speak, I know a lot of people who say, "Oh, well, I can understand French better than I can speak it, or I can read it better than I can speak it, or I can write it better than I can speak it." I think that's because they're afraid to make a mistake. So that has really helped me. Um, so yeah, self compassion and being able to laugh at yourself. And number eight is commitment. I When I moved to France, I knew there were going to be cultural differences, and when I got here, I experienced them. Not having a garbage disposal, not having screens on windows, not having a dryer to dry my clothes with, and having to hang my clothes on a line for the first time in my life at age 51. And the thing is, when you have cultural differences like that and you just get here, they're novel. They're like, oh, okay. I This is interesting, or this is different. But when you're here after 2 years or 3 years, and you think to yourself, oh, well, if I stay here long term, this is going to be my life. And these inconveniences and the things that feel uncomfortable, because they're different here. Is that something that I'm willing to accept, embrace, and not feel angry or bitter about? Because if you don't embrace them, and you are have a little bit of bitterness about that, that is not a good place to be when it's your life, right? And so I found myself having to commit to embracing the things that felt inconvenient or less comfortable. And in fact, one of the things I've had to shift my identity. One of the I've been writing my third book, and one of the chapter titles is "Spoiled American in a Hardy French World." And I had to do exactly that. I had to become less of that spoiled American, and be okay with that. And that has helped me, because going into year 3, when I was feeling, why is it like this? I caught myself and I didn't feel good. And it wasn't how I wanted to experience my life living in France. And so I knew that I was going to have to adjust my attitude there. And I did, and recommit. And I think that just shows that, as you live, someplace longer term, your identity can shift, and mine definitely has. And I think, the shop owner that when I started the story off with, who said, "Oh, you've been living in Surrey for 7 years. Yeah, you're no longer an American. You're a Saratan." I think that speaks to this idea of committing, and the identity shift that happens when you do. All right. So those are the 8 things that have helped me to stay in France for 8 years. And I think that, these are reasons that these are things that can help you as you think about making a move abroad or as you start your new life abroad. Which one of these do you feel like would be the most helpful to you in sustaining yourself long term in a foreign country? Let me know in the chat. All right. So I'm going to go back and see what else we've got going on. There's a lot of good conversation. I appreciate you being so engaged. This is wonderful. Um, all right. Miss Sierra asks, are there things you would have done differently if you had to do the move again? I think the one thing that comes to mind is, well, there are two things that come to mind. I think the first thing would be that I would not have assumed that I would not be able to ship things because the price of shipping to France would have been too much. I assumed that. And so my aim in clearing out my house was to get rid of everything. And 2 weeks before my move, I still got rid of a lot, but I had some things that I really wasn't sure what to do with, sentimental things, things that hadn't sold in my estate sale. And I was down to the wire. And I was like, I can't think about getting rid of this stuff. I need to move on to the next thing because in 2 weeks I'm getting on a plane. And so I decided to get a storage locker. So I would have if I would not have just assumed I couldn't ship, because what wound up happening was 2 years later, I wound up shipping and paying for shipping, paying for storage, and paying import taxes because I didn't ship in the first year. I think the second thing that I would have done differently is I would have still come on the visitor visa first, even though in the back of my mind I thought, yeah, I think I want to start a coaching business. I wasn't 100% sure. I would have definitely come on the visitor visa first. I would have decompressed from having worked and all of that, and then I would have started my business sooner because I was in year three. Was in year three when I said, "Oh, Patricia, you need to get this business going." I would have in year one, I would have, decompressed. Year two, I would have started working on my business plan. And then in the start of year three, I would have gone for the profession liberal visa that I'm on now. So I wouldn't have waited so long. I would have been more intentional with my sabbatical. All right, great question. Thank you. Let's see. Let's see what else we got. If you got questions, let me know. Put a Q in front of them so it's easier for me to see. Cynthia says, how do you recommend doing a scouting trip? Okay, so I've done two. I think and I have a video on this, and I don't remember the title, but if you go to my channel and you put scouting trip, I'm sure that's going to come up, and I outline what you can do. But I think one of the most important things to do is to go for as long as you can so that you can get a real sense of the place, and live in an Airbnb or a vacation rental by owner situation so that you get to cook, so that you get to take out the trash and the recyclables, so that you get a feel for that. I think that is really important. I think people do scouting trips. If you're not sure of the location, I think not having too many locations to scout is important as well, because if you've got 3 weeks and 5 places to visit, you're not going to get a real sense. You might get a real sense that this isn't the right place, but you might not get the real sense that this is, right? I think sometimes it takes longer to 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 know that a place is right. And you may get a hit. It may be like for me, Perpignan, just that day trip. But those are some of the tips. But I definitely recommend going to my channel and searching for scouting trip um, and watching that. That will be definitely helpful for you. Ah, like this. Kim Cooper. I recently noticed that I don't want to throw myself under the bus anymore. Good for you. Good for you. I mean, it's so I don't know where that comes from, raking yourself over the coals or throwing yourself under the bus, but it doesn't serve you. And okay, what's done is done, right? It's time to move on. Don't make the mistake again, right? So great. Oh, okay. Let's see what this is. We're off to the races. I said, I just watched a YouTube 15-minute YouTube 15-minute trick to learning a language using a Feynman method, which I am not familiar with, but that's interesting. Highly recommend it for the very things you noted with freezing up when you try to speak the language. All right, so yes, I think that freezing when you're trying to speak a foreign language is is something that happens. And when I moved to France, I knew so much more French than I was able to communicate. And part of that was because I was so far out of my element. Like everything was new. I was just a nervous wreck and I couldn't think clearly. And so I'm not sure what the Feynman method is. I'm going to look into it, but if it helps with that, not being able to think clearly, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. Thanks for sharing. Let's see. Ah, thank you. You um, like and subscribe. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. Yes, it helps people to see this video, which I hope is helpful, insightful, um, and it helps my channel. So thank you. All right. Kristen, the real reason I'm watching this instead of packing is because inspiration is not one and done. So true. Dreams need feeding. Moving abroad is hard. Thanks, Patricia. And you are all being today's ocean feast. Yes, dream feast. All right. All right. So that's all I have for you today. If there are no other questions, I'm going to wrap up. Up. Why do I think that the main reason expats move back home? I think it depends on the person. I think it depends on the person. Family is a big one. Being away from family was harder than they anticipated. Um, the financial piece, I think, is a big one, and I think just underestimating the the mindset, emotional component of it all. I think a lot of people recognize that, oh yeah, it's a big thing, it's a big step to take. And I'm gonna need to find a place to live. I'm going to need to apply for the visa. I'm going to need to ship my things if I'm going to do that. I'm going to need to do all the logistical things. And they do all of that. And I think that a big reason is that they don't recognize that the cultural differences that and who they are um, is pretty I don't know, I don't want to say hardwired, but who you are, if you haven't done a lot of personal development work, is who you are. And when you move to a foreign country, you're brushing up against or bumping up against ways of being that are very different from you. And so I think that that is a big reason as well. So, but I don't know. I mean, I think they're all personal reasons why people move back. I know that, yeah, I mean, people have moved back recently for different reasons, but I think those are the top three, I would say. All right. I loved your dating video. Any new prospects? Well, if you're talking about the recent dating video, I'm dating somebody exclusively now, so no new prospects, but still going strong in that relationship. So, Kim Cooper, thank you. Your book, Live a Bold Life, is great help for me. I'm still working through each day. Good. This is the book. When I said that I had two goals in moving to France, one was becoming fluent in French, and the other was writing my second book. This was the second book. So that means a lot to me. Thank you. Thank you. And speaking of book, I spoke about my third book that I'm working on and that hope to get published soon. This is the draft of it, Leaving Home, Finding Home, Black women's story of starting over in France. And my goal is to, by the end of this year, to have finished reading through it, having printed a version, draft number 4, reading through that, and then starting to work to find a literary agent, because this book I would like to traditionally publish. And it's been like January of 2025 was the month that I was supposed to have started working or looking for a literary agent. And when I reread version 2, I was like, oh, this needs a lot of work. And so finally at a point where I'm like just about ready to do that. But that is a goal. I'm so ready to kind of move this forward. Patience is a virtue. So, but it's coming. All right. Any other questions before we go? So I've spoken about my my book. Questions keep popping up. I'll talk about this and then I'll answer these last questions coming in. So yeah, that's the book update. Don't forget about the January workshop, the roundtable, create your reinvention plan. It's all about setting a goal or two and breaking that goal down into milestones, breaking those milestones down into smaller tasks that you can actually start working on, creating a timeline for that plan and an accountability approach so that you can actually do the work you need to reach the goal that you set. And we're going to talk about, as I said, your core values and making sure it is tied to your core values so that you are more highly motivated to work your plan even when it feels hard. So that is happening. I hope that you can join me for that. All right. So that's another announcement I have. And then finally, there is next year, you're going to see a programming change on my channel. I'm still going to be coming to you twice a month with a recorded video. The recorded videos, I love to do them. I love recording them, coming up with with topics. I actually even love the editing part, but that is something that takes a long time. And as I'm going to be focusing on the book, as I'm going to be focusing on other things next year, I am scaling back. So 2 recorded videos every month, and at least one, but probably 2 live streams a month. That way, you still get me, but just in a different way. All right. So that is my programming announcement as well. If you have ideas for live streams you'd like for me to do, let me know in the chat, and I'll take those down because I'm going to be needing some topics. All right. Ah, hi, Julia. I'm doing well. How are you? So glad that you could join. Oh, how wonderful. So good. So good to hear from you. Ah, all right. Let's see. So there was a question here. About writing. How do you combat the isolation of writing? Um, I don't know that I don't know that I struggle with isolation in writing. I think what I struggle with in writing is I think what I struggle with in writing is especially where I am now in reviewing what I've written. As I said, I've got 28 chapters in this book, and in rereading, I said what I printed this out, this third draft out. What I wanted to do was to read it cover to cover to see if it made sense because I'd written some chapters months ago, and I was like, is this even logical? And so that was my aim. And so I read through the first 12 chapters like it was just a finished book, making small corrections, but nothing that I'd have to just to revamp. And then I got to chapter 13 and 14 and 15 and 16, like that messy middle. And these were chapters that I had recently added into this third draft. So they weren't, they were pretty new and they required some work. And so what I struggle with is sitting down, have of reworking the same thing again and again and not getting bored or with it. That's where I struggle with isolation. I think once I'm in, and that's really an initial thing. Once I'm in, and I'm good. I'm in the zone, and I think that's why I don't necessarily struggle with isolation and writing because I'm in the zone about that. If that makes sense. But I know some people who, have writing groups that they join to combat isolation. So that could be something that could be helpful. Thank you, Igami Glow. Um, thank you. Here we go. Are you going to have more guests on your live videos? Yes. So next month, if all goes as planned, I'm going to have somebody who moved to Germany and has been in Germany for a while and who has actually gotten permanent residency there. Um, and her story is amazing. So definitely going to have her. We'll have more guests too. What sorts of guests are you looking for me to have? Let me know. All right. Julia, good to see you too. Yes, France is doing good for me. Yes, and I miss Uncle Bob terribly too. And he's got a chapter in my upcoming book. So, yeah, he was very influential in my getting to France, in making me know that it was okay for me to move to France. And so he's got his own chapter. So can't wait to share it with you. All right. Michelle S. has a question for me. What are my thoughts on applying for a long-term student visa if you want to improve your French? I think that it's a good idea. I think finding the right school for you is important. I know some people who have signed up, who've come on a student visa to study French, and they weren't happy with the school, and so they didn't get the most out of it. Um, so I think it's a good thing to do. I think it's just making sure that you're signing up for the school that you sign up with is in alignment with what you're looking for. And I'm not really sure what kinds of questions you can ask to get to that point, but perhaps if you're on social media or in some groups, you can ask the question, has anybody gotten a student visa and attended schools? What was your take on the schools? Did you like it? Uh, what do you wish was different? So that you can, really pick the school that's going to serve you well. But I think it's a good idea. I mean, if that's how you want to go about it. I didn't move on a student visa. I came on the visitor visa, but I did wind up taking a class. It was about a 6-month class, and that was really helpful because when I got here, I realized, yeah, my French is okay, but I've got a long way to go. And I could speak it and I could understand slow spoken French, but I couldn't write. I was illiterate. I couldn't write it and I couldn't read it well. It was, and going to school really helped me with that. So I think that could work for you. Yes, the Lights by Dawn. And I met her when she was at cooking school. Yeah, she came on that student visa initially. So yeah. All right. So we're at the end of the live stream. I want to thank everybody who has joined live. And if you're watching the replay, thank you. If you have not already liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up to help with the algorithm. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, be sure to go ahead and do that. And click the notification bell, because what that will do is anytime that I go live, you will be notified that I'm going live. And so you won't miss a live stream. And anytime that I publish or post a new video, you'll be notified as well. All right. So I want to wish everybody a happy holidays. Happy 2026. And I look forward to seeing you in the new year. Take care. Bye-bye.